So I reread this because MJ at This Reading Life did a group read over on Discord, and I decided, I really was interested in rereading it again and seeing if I still loved it as much as I had several years ago. So I will link all of those channels below so you can check out their reviews. I think several of them had many different layers and opinions, and that can be helpful if you're deciding to read a book or not. So check out all of their channels, see if you discover somebody new. I did. So let me talk a little bit about the book. Heidi ho! This is Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today I wanted to do an individual review, spoiler free, for The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is a pretty famous classic, right? And I had forgotten. It had been about 7 years since I read it originally, and I don't know that I ever knew certain facts. I did know that he was predominantly more a poet-playwright, and this is really his first and biggest kind of only novel, and it is really in the genre of kind of thriller and almost a little mystery or mystical in the sense of supernatural, right? Because the whole background is the story of a portrait that basically takes on his soul, and the portrait ages and takes on anything of a negative quality in his life while he remains eternally youthful. And what that does with the characters. There are, in my mind, three major characters. There is Dorian Gray, who is a young man. We learn very quickly about his background, where he came from, kind of the circumstances of what has created him, and grown up without a lot of strong influences or moral groundings, in being pretty much an orphan. And the artist, who has his own kind of journey and struggles and viewpoints of the world, if you will. And then the third character is just a delight of interesting kind of one-liners almost, in Lord Henry. He comes along almost as a comic relief in some regards, and he does not really also have a very deep moral compass that alters him. He kind of gets away with whatever he can get away with and just really enjoys life, just one of those larger than life kind of people. And so these three men encounter one another, have this creation of this portrait that takes on these kind of supernatural things without anybody really realizing it or intending it. It's not like they're warlocks that called upon the powers and really believed it would happen, right? And so you play out society, what's going on in these lives, as this one young man is pretty much coming to age and into adulthood and reckoning with himself, not really having a lot of dependable people to speak into his life, what that does to him, what kind of the portrait represents. All these things are very, very fascinating. And to know that Oscar Wilde in his real life, of course, was a professed homosexual, which was very just kind of cutting edge, right? Especially his time period to kind of come out with this. And the book was very scandalous, and they really could see, because an author is going to put a lot of their own personality or thoughts into their work. So there's a lot of this kind of picking apart of it, if you will, for this reason. And the talking about religious viewpoints, spiritual viewpoints, supernatural viewpoints that Oscar Wilde himself would have been wrestling and struggling with. And I just thought he did a phenomenal job writing those things into the characters. It's very slow moving and creepy and psychological and thrilling in that sense. It is not an action-packed plot by any stretch of the imagination, but I totally give this 5 stars. I totally think that this is in some of my top classics of all times. I I really like his plays as well, the importance of being earnest, all those kind of good things. So I'm an Oscar Wilde fan. I just think that's what it is. But if you kind of lean towards those kind of slower, creepy, psychological books that resonates with you, I would recommend this as a good place to start with the classics. It's also a pretty short book, just a couple hundred pages, so it's not a huge time commitment in that regard. Check it out, see if you like it. I will give a disclosure that you have to read, kind of to the halfway point before things start happening, if you will. There's a lot of buildup, a lot of background, a lot of learning the characters and what their viewpoints are and their backgrounds are before anything really happens. So it's going to be a slow start. So that's my disclaimer, and to maybe hang in there. And again, it's not that long of a book, so check it out sometime. If you have read it, you can leave me a comment below if you want to read it. You can also do the same. If you have another recommendation of other books that you think are good, either classics or modern day, that maybe there's been several, I think, people that have been inspired and adapted. So if you want to leave any of that below for us, that would be well appreciated. I appreciate you stopping by as always, taking time. Like and subscribe, hang around. I will see y'all again soon. Take care.